Thanks for listening to the Granite List Live. Today's episode is brought to you by Connect Healthcare Collaboration, where benefits marketing meets clinical advocacy to drive effective employee engagement. This is the Granite List Live, where we explore all things human capital and employee benefits related. I'm your host, Sally Pace, and today I am joined by Joe Fernandez, who is the CSO of Selerix. Brokers, benefits consultants, benefits leaders know the drill. Open enrollment rolls around and you're juggling with tech questions, client confusion, a million different things, and a whole lot of noise. And so I'm excited to be able to sit down with you, Joe, to really dig into the often overlooked strategies that help brokers deliver proven success during that enrollment period. So before we go into who Selerix is and what they do you mind giving us a little bit about your background? You're no stranger to the benefits space.
Sure. Thanks, and glad to be here. Yes, I've been in the insurance business, employee benefits businesses in particular, almost 40 years now, and all through working through brokerage all that time, working with brokers and benefit advisors to help guide their clients with insurance products or technology tools to help their clients get more out of their benefit programs.
Perfect. And Selerix is certainly one of the most well-known names when it comes to enrollment. Can you tell our audience a little bit about the history of Selerix and the background?
Well, Selerix is one of the original pioneers of utilizing technology to build a benefit administration platform that really creates an end-to-end solution that takes the complexities of benefit programs from enrollment through management, through transactional events that occur throughout the year, and keep all of those things together in a very efficient and compliant manner.
And you did share that you've been in the industry for a while, but I'm going to call you a young veteran. You started when you were 2, must have. So you've seen this time and again. You've lived it and you've been a part of a solution, but can you tell a little bit about what you think is the most broken part of open enrollment today?
Well, yeah, no question. I've seen it. I've seen benefits go from what used to be relatively simple to very, very complex benefit programs today. And I've seen the benefit business go from a paper-based approach to a technology-based approach to keep all those things in check. But I would say that the biggest thing that's broken about an open enrollment process is the technology does not necessarily match the needs of the benefit programs. And what I mean by that is benefits are complex, and a lot of times employers need to make adjustments of those benefits. But unfortunately, sometimes those benefit changes and choices that they make, the technology has limitations to be able to properly administer or properly communicate and educate their employees to make those choices. So it's almost like technology, when it comes to benefits, takes somewhat of a back seat. And it's unfortunate because technology is where you need that benefit, the interface between the employees and the utilization of their benefits. It's important to have technology that can match those complexities in there to be able to maximize the value that the employers need to maximize their benefits for.
So obviously the audience is full of benefits leaders. Is there a myth about benefits engagement that you'd like to burst?
Well, yeah. I mean, probably one of the biggest myths is that sometimes we think that employees are waiting with bated breath and all excited about enrollment time and making decisions about the benefits that they choose and what might be available to them. And it's usually quite the opposite of that. I've heard stories where, and articles where employees rather have their teeth drilled at the dentist than to have to make employee benefit choices during open enrollment. And it doesn't have to be that way, obviously. If you think of all the things that we as consumers interface with when it comes to making benefit choices or any kind of consumer choice that we have to make, we always seek for the fun and informative way of that approach. And traditionally, employee benefits have been the opposite of that. They get books with pamphlets and filled with legalese and confusing language and confusing choices. So most employees fear that. And it's important, especially in today's environment, for brokers to be able to explore technology-based approaches that can break those barriers down and simplify how employee benefits is communicated, enrolled, and managed, primarily utilizing technology. In other words, use technology to get to where the employees are at, whether it's mobile devices. But think about all the things we do as consumers. We go on Amazon to buy things because there in one screen, we know everything we need to know to make a confident buying decision. Let's find ways to deliver employee benefits in that same manner.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You brought a real life analogy that anyone on the planet can relate to. We've had the privilege of being partners and supporters of Selerix for a long time and helped with some of the content library information. We certainly take your information and share it with our audience all the time. But you and I both know that open enrollment is not just a one and done thing, that it requires kind of a year-round approach. So how do you help brokers create more year-round value instead of just that open enrollment seasonality?
That's an important distinction because open enrollment is the point of which it's almost like the point of entry, if you will, for an employee to make that buying decision, that enrollment decision. But the deliverable of what those benefits represent happen throughout the year. They just don't happen during open enrollment. And, it's human nature. Probably about 90% or 80% of what I'm talking about today, everyone on this podcast is going to forget, 30 minutes later or a couple hours later. So the thing about benefits that employees need to be constantly reminded about the value that they bring and how do they utilize and how do they maximize what they participate in. So it's important for brokers to help their clients build a strategy. And of course, technology can go a long way to help that, to provide touch points throughout the year, whether they're quarterly webinars or seminars, or whether they're weekly talking points or bullet points to help remind them about the benefits that they have and how those are applied or how those employees can apply those benefits in their day-to-day needs.
So, there's been a ton of talk across the benefits space, the healthcare space in general, about personalization, high-touch customization. What's your take on personalization to boost benefits engagement?
Well, again, it's almost like from an employee standpoint, I think it's important to apply some of the things that as consumers we experience day to day. I'll pull another analogy, Netflix. There's so much content out there. There's so much that Netflix has. If they didn't have that personalization process where they get to learn what your likes are and what kind of entertainment you like to see and what kind of genre you'd like to review, it's almost too much. In other words, it's analysis paralysis. If I have too much of a menu, it's hard for me to make a choice. By the time I decide to make a choice, the time I had to spend to view whatever program I'm going to view is kind of expired. So I think the expectation is that the employers should be able to know somewhat about what me as an employee would like to have as a benefits, whether that's done through surveys or whether that's done through an experience in the enrollment process. I think that's important. It's almost like there's a couple of restaurants where, you get these menus that are laminated and are spiral bound, and it takes you forever to make a decision. It's almost to the point where you just resort back to the only thing the hamburger. They can't get a hamburger wrong, right? So you just resort back to that. And unfortunately, a lot of benefit open enrollment processes are like that. I'm given a big book, or an employee's made to sit in a group meeting where they're bombarded with all sorts of information, and it's so confusing and it's so complex. And we as humans, it's our nature that if we don't understand something, we resort back to either no or what we've had in the past. And a lot of employers confuse that with employee satisfaction for the choices that they've made. And it's not that they're satisfied, it's just that they're afraid to make the wrong decision. So one of the things we do at Selerix is provide an ecosystem in that process that takes an employee through a journey with videos and decision support tools. Heck, YouTube can't be wrong. Look how popular YouTube is, right? We go to YouTube to learn how to do open heart surgery. It seems like you literally can do that. So we use that kind of technique, that kind of engagement process to be able to bring that engagement level and make it simple and fun for an employee to learn. So we take those things into account, like how many kids do they have and how old are the kids and where do they live and how long they've worked for the employer and what their income level and job. And we have the ability to take all that stuff and run it through algorithms to present benefit packages that are engaging and fit the needs for that employee, for that demographic. And that makes it not only more efficient, but definitely it's designed to build the confidence level that the employee needs in order to make a good decision, not just a decision because that's what they've had in the past and they're confused to make a change.
Okay, Joe, I'm gonna say it publicly. I think you've given my most favorite bunch of analogies of anyone that we've had on our podcast. You've done an excellent job of making it real for anyone that's listening. So last question as we kind of come to the end of the session today. If you had a magic wand and you could fix one piece in the benefits world, what would you change and why?
God, that's a big question. And I can spend hours talking about that one, but let's bring it down to make it really simple. Don't try to fit your benefit program to what the limitations of your technologies have. Work with technology that has the flexibility to be able to provide whatever benefit program and whatever design you need in order to maximize the value. Unfortunately, too many employers find themselves with that limitations. The best of all worlds is really the approach. I kind of like it a lot of employers try to focus or use technology in what I call the all-in-one solution. A system that does payroll, a system that does applicant tracking, a system that does benefit management. And sometimes I liken that to an El Camino. It's a car, yeah, maybe, but is it a good, efficient car? Yeah, not really. It's a truck. Yeah, kind of, but it'll carry the loads that you need to carry sometimes. So sometimes it's better to focus on technology that maximizes the value where it needs to be. When in benefits is 40%, roughly 40% of your entire HR budget, you would think that attention in that would be important in order to maximize that value proposition.
Love it. Joe, we at the Granite List have, like I said, had the privilege of getting to watch your team at work. We know that you love what you do. You all are hardworking, but you really are in touch with your audience. So I know obviously people can visit thegranitelist.com and see all the content that we've put out about Selerix. But if they wanted to take it a step further, where do you want people to go?
Well, Selerix.com definitely is a great place to go because not only you learn everything there is about what we offer, but there's also a lot of resources that you can utilize to help your clients start the journey or continue a journey for maximizing the value of their benefits.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much, Joe, for joining us today. And thank you to our audience for tuning in to another episode of The Granite List Live.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Granite List Live. Access our entire library by visiting your favorite podcast venue or subscribe on our site, thegranitelist.live.